Hey, what is up, guys? It is Slick or Slickmoff here, back again with another video. In this one, we will be tier ranking the Batman Arkham DLC. This is not just, by the way, the Batman Arkham Knight DLC, which obviously had the most robust DLC package, but we will be rating the Arkham City, Arkham Origins DLC as well. And one thing that this tier is, I just found it online. It says all Batman Arkham games and DLC. I'm not going to rate the Arkham games. I already did a tier ranker of the Batman Arkham games. I'll link it down below. So I'm not going to do the final four here, which are Night, Asylum, Origins, and City. I'm just going to leave those towards the bottom. So let's jump right into this here and tier rank the DLC. Obviously, we have the S tier, A tier, B tier, C, and D tier. Let's start with the Catwoman DLC. This one I am going to place in the C tier. So I don't know if you remember, but there was the Nightwing DLC, which I gave a horrible review to and really hated, and most people in the community also hated it. There was a review that came out where somebody said it took them 2 hours to beat the Nightwing DLC. This was like, at this point, 6 years ago. Only a small percentage of you will probably remember this or were here for this.
Finishing it all up took me closer to 2 hours instead of 1. What? 2 hours? Is this the Nightwing DLC review? Let me check back up top. Nightwing DLC is Arkham Knight's best add-on. What? 2 hours? He must have played the wrong DLC.
It was funny because it was like that DLC was so easy and it took such a short amount of time to beat, probably, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. It was kind of hilarious that it took somebody 2 hours to beat the DLC. But the Catwoman DLC, on the other hand, actually was very difficult. The final little fight where it's just waves and waves of enemies and the floor is electrifying. And the problem is it doesn't work very well with the free flow combat because you free flow, and if it accidentally locks on the wrong person, then it will take you, you'll fly across the floor into the part that's electrocuted and you will just die. So it was actually kind of broken. Not that it was necessarily hard per se or impossible, but it was one of the more difficult fights in the Arkham games. But it wasn't because it was a well-designed fight. It was difficult because it was so poorly designed that it was kind of almost impossible. So I'll say the final fight was really bad. I'm not going to put it in the D tier, though, because I think the map design in the toy playhouse room thing is actually really quite nice. I think it looks great. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. I think the combat was not great. Even the first stealth mission where you're retrieving the keys, not very original, obviously. We already did that prior in Batman Arkham City. So I don't think the gameplay is really that great. I don't think the puzzle that they have is really that good. But the map looks good. So that saves it and puts it in the C tier. Okay, the Red Hood DLC in Batman Arkham Knight. I am going to place this. It probably also deserves to be in the C tier, to be honest, because it was such a letdown. They hyped it up so much as a DLC. I'm going to put it in the B tier, and the reason why is because it is fun being able to play as Red Hood. I specifically remember replaying that DLC over and over again because it was the only way to actually play as the Arkham Knight or Red Hood. So that was a very interesting and dynamic component of that game, of being able to play as Red Hood. So even though the DLC wasn't particularly great, the end boss fight with Black Mask was kind of cool. The ending had some significance into the Batman Arkham universe, namely with Black Mask dying, so at least there was some level of plot. I can't say that for the Catwoman DLC. So I'm going to put it in the B tier. It really isn't great. I almost kind of feel like these should move down. Yeah, I'm going to move these down. No, I'm going to keep it the way it is. I'm going to keep it the way it is. Okay, the Harley Quinn DLC in Batman Arkham City. This certainly belongs in the A tier. What I look for in DLC is some level of story. Like, there has to have some meat to it. It can't just be like in the Catwoman DLC where we just fight people the whole time. There needs to be some level of plot, some level of significance into the broader universe. I need to come out of the DLC thinking, I'm glad that I played this. I've learned something more about these characters in this universe than I did before playing the game, and this was a fun experience. So, based upon that, I think that Harley Quinn certainly belongs in the A tier. Following up with these characters after the events of Batman Arkham City, I think is very fascinating and something that we all wanted to see. And when the DLC dropped, it was pretty highly anticipated, and the DLC plays well. Is it groundbreaking or the best story you've ever played? No, but it's strong, and it is a fun DLC, so I think it certainly belongs in the A tier. And by the way, that is the Batman Arkham City Harley Quinn DLC, not the Arkham Knight Harley Quinn pack, which we'll be getting to here shortly. Okay, jumping in now to the Season of Infamy. The Season of Infamy, I specifically remember being very excited for because we had gotten so many pieces of DLC like a flip of a coin and the Nightwing DLC and even the Batgirl DLC. And Season of Infamy was actually a really, really good DLC pack. It actually was good. It added, again, to the Batman Arkham Knight universe and even map. It added to the map. And it really, really was a strong piece of DLC. Following all of the villains that it did, sure, some packs were or missions were not as good as others. For instance, the Mad Hatter one was really interesting, but it wasn't necessarily the strongest, versus Mr. Freeze and Killer Croc were really strong. So I think that probably the only piece of DLC on this list that belongs in the S tier is the Season of Infamy. It was really good, highly anticipated, fun. The Mr. Freeze boss fight being a tank boss fight was really, really disappointing after the Deathstroke boss fight, which was such a letdown with the militia in the full game in Arkham Knight. And to see them emulate that in the DLC was kind of mind-blowing. It was almost like they were trolling. I think they were almost trolling. I think they knew that we didn't want a tank boss fight with Mr. Freeze, and they were like, here it is nonetheless, suck it up, whatever. But no, that is definitely, I think, an S-tier DLC pack. It was really good. It lived up to the hype. It was the only piece of Arkham Knight DLC that did live up to the hype, and it honestly probably saved the whole season pass. It's the season pass at the $40 price range probably was only worth it because of Season of Infamy and the skins. Like, these other DLC packs were such a big letdown that it probably made it so that it was barely worth it, and it was because of Season of Infamy. Okay, Cold Heart DLC in Arkham Origins. I just said there's only one in the S tier. It's either S or A tier. I think it's only fair to put it in the S tier, frankly. I'm gonna keep it there. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it there with Season of Infamy. Batgirl DLC. This piece of DLC was a huge disappointment because I was so excited for it. The anticipation was really immense for the Batgirl DLC, and it just didn't live up to it in any facet. The story didn't really have a plot, which I was expecting. There's so much to explore here in this universe wherein we're following Batgirl before she is paralyzed by the Joker, and Batgirl and the Joker are there on the same death trap together on this sort of oil rig in the middle of the ocean where it's designed like a carnival, which is really cool. Like, the set design is great. The map design is really cool. I was really happy with everything in the DLC as far as the premise goes, besides the fact that Tim Drake and Barbara Gordon were having their little flirty thing, which is cringe. But the DLC was essentially rescuing 3 hostages and then having a final boss fight with Harley Quinn, Tim Drake, and the Joker and Batgirl, which was cool. I'm gonna say the final boss fight is cool. I think that the Batgirl DLC, frankly though, belongs in the A tier, and I'll tell you why. Because, like I said, the final boss fight is strong. They put a lot of effort into the design of the map and the oil rig. It sort of did expand the lore of the Arkhamverse in some way. I'm going to put it in the A tier. Okay. I've replayed it a fair bit. It's kind of fun to replay. I wish that the story was better and more robust, but frankly, I think it belongs in this tier of Harley Quinn content because they're roughly the same length. And even though the Harley Quinn DLC is probably slightly better from Batman Arkham City, I'm going to still put them both in the A tier. Next is a flip of the coin Tim Drake DLC. This was not a good piece of DLC. I did, again, going back to everything that I've been saying about pretty much every piece of DLC, they put a lot of effort into the gameplay and the map design. The map looked cool in the DLC. But one, Tim Drake is interacting with Barbara Gordon on the radio, which just triggers me. And secondly, there's no plot. The final boss fight sucks. This definitely belongs in the C tier. The Nightwing DLC. The Nightwing DLC is just as bad as the Flip of a Coin DLC, but I'm going to put it in the D tier, and I'll tell you why. Because this was the first pack of DLC after the Batgirl DLC. The Batgirl DLC, we all got it. It was like, okay, this is like a 5 out of 10, maybe a 6, probably more like a 5. Okay, now we're excited for Nightwing, and it's like, okay, now it's Nightwing and Penguin, and they're at the GCPD building. This is really fun. This is really exciting. And then you play it. The plot of the DLC is quite literally Penguin is fat and stuck in an elevator, and therefore we need to save Penguin and get his fat ass out of the elevator, but also like capture him for some reason. And then it's basically the entire map is one stealth mission. You do the stealth mission, take down like 10 people. You get Penguin's fat ass out of the elevator, and that's the end of the DLC. I mean, it is literally an abomination on DLC. It shouldn't even be called DLC. It belongs in the D tier. Okay, Harley Quinn DLC, I'm going to put it in the C tier. Once again, very weak. You know, maybe I should put it up here. Because similar to the Red Hood thing, at least, it was fun to play as Harley Quinn for the first time in the Arkham games. It was a pre-order bonus. Like, for some reason, this B tier, the pre-order bonus DLCs were more fun than these. Like, the pre-order bonuses were more anticipated or something versus the DLCs. Like, we paid extra money for these, so I have extra spite towards them. Even though I feel like these are all in the same category and tier of quality. But there's just something about that, like, playing as Harley Quinn for the first time. We'll put this up here. Yeah, I think this is fair. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about, like, the pre-order DLC that we were so excited for it, and it was just it was less disappointing than the DLC that we paid for. So I think that, broadly speaking, most of these are kind of on the same tier of quality, but that's the main distinction in my rating. So there you have it, guys. Season of Infamy and Cold Cold Heart belong in the S tier. Batgirl and Harley Quinn from Arkham City belong in the A tier. And all the Arkham Knight DLC is B tier or above. Obviously, Season of Infamy and Batgirl are Arkham Knight DLC. But yeah, these little 15-minute packs with Catwoman, Robin, and Nightwing were really bad. And big swing and a miss, big oof. Hopefully they can improve the DLC and Suicide Squad. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Ring the notification bell and subscribe for daily or weekly, rather, uploads on superhero video games. I've got a ton of great videos coming your way, so be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.